Hi. We are now going to talk about the second portion of chapter 5. And you've gone through writing your story and you are doing some self-reflecting at this time. And within that, we're going to evolve and transition into releasing and understanding these emotions that may have come up for us that were not so great or not so fun. And even if right now you may be feeling resistant to the process, even if right now you feel like you've processed it, I definitely want to spend some time talking about the cycle of emotions. And first and foremost, my goal here is to give you permission. Now, you don't need me to give you permission. We know this. This is obvious, right? But at the same time, I think it's key and essential that I just say it. Joy gives you permission to feel every emotion that is your human right. And now you think to yourself, I give myself permission to feel every emotion that is my human right. So as we are working on letting go of maybe some of the things in our life that were not so great, I want us to understand why we haven't let them go, why they have been with us this entire time. And the answer to that question is we have never fully emotionally processed them before. So I'm going to start with, my example and kind of my story. So whenever something happens to me that is a tough lesson, that makes me hurt, I immediately go to self-reflection and regret. I think to myself, what did I do wrong? I must have done something wrong. That's my very first reaction every single time. People who know me may not see that. I hide it pretty well. But if I'm going to be real and vulnerable with you and tell you the truth, that's exactly what I do. I always feel shame. I feel like I could have done a better job. I forget to allow myself to be human. I forget to allow myself to be disappointed. So I miss a couple of steps. If you've reviewed, it's page 89 in The Feather of Truth, you know I've missed a step or two. So I knew I needed to work on what it really means to emotionally release. So this is why this has been added into the original book. So we're going to talk about those steps. The first step, when you are feeling hurt or something has happened in your life that is causing a reaction in your soul, in your spirit, and in your being, the very first step is to be angry. It's actually fear. So we'll start with fear, but from fear, we have a choice, right? We get angry. Anger. Think about anger. What is anger? Does it mean I have to hit something, break something, yell at someone? No. But it's okay to let your metaphoric blood boil. It's okay to be angry. You are allowed and you should embrace this emotion. Now, to stay in anger can be very destructive. It could push away individuals who are trying to be there for you. It could sever relationships. Anger can be very destructive. So it's important that you learn to harness it in a healthy way. That doesn't mean subdue it. That just means allow yourself to feel the anger, process it, and move forward. The next step is to feel disappointment and hurt. So what does that feel like? Well, first of all, the action takes place. You immediately feel fear, and so now you react in anger, and then you feel disappointment and hurt. Now you just can't believe this happened. Now you are disappointed because you had a different expectation of what the outcome should be. You're hurt because you put your intention in for this to be a positive outcome. Okay? Number 3 is going to be responsibility and regret. Now, responsibility is a tricky one because there are things that happen in life where you do not need to be responsible for it at all. There are random acts of violence that take place, and it doesn't mean you have to be responsible for it. Okay, a case in point would be a rape. Do you think that you're responsible for being raped? If you do, it could be actually going against you. So we can embrace that word if it's something you're trying to take hold of, but really it's not yours. What's more fitting in that situation is regret. You have regret that you were in that situation, that this took place. And so the processing is not going to be necessarily responsibility, but having the regret and being able to process that information. The fourth is one of the hardest ones. It's vulnerability and acceptance. How do you go from being angry to being vulnerable? That's absurd. But if we allow the 2 steps between the two to take place and we allow the healing to begin, then we are then able to be vulnerable. And this is a key part to the healing process. What does vulnerability look like? Okay. Simple case in point is a relationship with a partner. Let's say that you were in an abusive relationship. Someone who was very, very controlling, who verbally cut you down to make themselves feel bigger. Okay, so you decide that this is not working for you. You sever the relationship. You are angry at first. Then you work through your disappointment and hurt. And then you begin to be responsible and regret the things that took place and, what that looked like for you. And then we go to vulnerability and acceptance. Okay? So for me to accept what has happened to me will be a huge piece of healing. The vulnerability will come in once we're able to accept it. The vulnerability means that I am ready to be open to another relationship and not be guarded or fearful of having the same kind of relationship again. To trust that you will do better in the future, that you will learn. Right? So to be vulnerable is a really hard part of this process. And for many people, it is a forgotten step. We try to skip it. We try to move past it. I'm all better is usually what that looks like. And it doesn't work for us. So we have to take our time with vulnerability. The next step is step 5, and that is release and healing. So once we accept and we become vulnerable again, we are able to release the pain and hurt. We are then finally able to just, okay, I'm ready. And allow the healing to begin. To allow ourselves to be nurtured. To allow ourselves to finally feel love again. Then we move into understanding. And this often looks like being able to put the pieces together. Like, oh, this was a lesson for me to learn. Or, oh, I've gone through these kinds of relationships a few times. And I'm now being able to identify the warning signs. So now I'm able to stop that a lot sooner. I understand why this came up for me. I see it. And I'm okay with it. Now, with an understanding comes knowledge and wisdom gained. So we're wiser for the experience, right? And then ultimately, after that understanding takes place, we fall into this beautiful love vibration. And the love vibration is a beautiful true gift that we want to resonate in as long as we possibly can. So now that I've shared these steps, there are exercises in person that we will do to process through these emotions. But I definitely want to talk about the 2 key frequencies of life. And the two key frequencies or vibrations in life is fear and love. And if you notice, as you look through the book, on page 89 here, it starts with fear and it ends with love. So fear and love are these two tools that we have in this lifetime as human beings. They have to exist together. They are not one without the other. It's kind of like the moon wouldn't mean so much if we didn't have the sun, and vice versa. Daytime wouldn't be what it is without nighttime. Light would not be what it is without darkness, right? So fear and love are there to help each other. But the key here is that fear is meant to last just long enough to help us shift, to help us change, to help us wake up, okay? To find love again. Everything we do has an emotion attached to it. Every action has a reaction. This statement is not just about the physical plane, it's about the emotional plane. So whatever I say boomerangs and ricochets back to me. Everything. So if I'm faced with adversity and I choose to walk in it with love, then that is to be reflected back to me. If I react in fear, then it's going to reflect back to me, right? But we can't just get there like this. We have to understand that this is a cycle. So it's okay if I feel fear, but then I have to process everything, which may mean that I wait before I speak. I wait before I react. Wisdom will give you love, not reaction, right? So for me to gain wisdom on any situation, I need to process from fear to love before I address it. Oftentimes, individuals are wronged or pointed out if they don't immediately respond to a question that has a ton of impact with whatever is said. It's okay to pull back and process your emotions, to go from fear to love so you can answer from a higher point of view, so you can answer from wisdom and knowledge earned and gained in a situation, right? Oftentimes we don't carry the love card with us and we just react in fear, right? We are reactionary. And this is what usually gets us in trouble. And then it causes the cycle and the spiral of chaos right after it. And that's why we're human. And that's why we're learning lessons. And nobody in this world is perfect. But to have this knowledge and to have this understanding will make us that much greater in our future. So this fear-love equation, why does this matter in this chapter? Why was it in the chapter with our story? Because what's happened oftentimes is there are parts of our story that we have not processed. There are parts of our story that we still sit in disappointment. We still sit in regret. Or we skipped a few steps and we just keep saying, I understand, but we don't believe it. It's not in our hearts. It's not really in the love vibration. We've just chosen to put a Band-Aid on it and say and identify it as this is the I understand Band-Aid, and it's okay. Everything's okay. It'll be okay, right? It's fine. I'll overcome. But we're not allowing that emotion to come forward and release it, right? So in this situation, we go to fear. First, we're angry, and then we release the anger. Then we go to hurt. We release the hurt. We feel disappointed. We feel it. We release it. And so on. Until we get to the healing, understanding, and finally, we're able to replace the fear with love. Full, 100% pure love. Well, that's not an easy task for anyone. You may question, how do you show love when you're a victim? Well, how do you not? Why would you want to live in fear and anger? It allows the other, the one who harmed you, the one who hurt you, to have your power. Why would you want to do that? So I ask you to take some time, look back at your story, and it's time for you to look at what you have not truly processed in your life. Find what they are and start to unravel. Untie the knots that have bound you for so many years, because you deserve it. Let your heart flutter to life. Let it lighten. I talk about the feather of truth. The feather of truth is about how much your heart weighs. It's actually a very old Egyptian process that I recently learned about. And when the name of this book came forward, called Feather of Truth, the name itself came forward. I didn't know what Feather of Truth meant. I Googled it to see if there was anybody else who had a book out there named that, because I wanted to make sure that obviously I could name my book such a name. And I love Egyptian mythology, and I definitely have some connections with it. And I had heard the story, but I didn't know it was called Feather of Truth. And this story was this, and a good friend of mine, Amanda, mentioned the story to me. And she told me later on, she's like, I did call it Feather of Truth when I told you the story, but of course my brain didn't remember, so it recalled it when it needed to. And she talked about a story of weighing your heart, right, against the weight of a feather. And when your heart is heavy and when it is burdened, it definitely outweighs a feather. But when you heal and you allow love to dominate your life, there's this tipping point that happens. And all of a sudden you have balanced weight between feather and heart. Your heart grows wings. It lightens its own load. And this pure heart energy can forgive and let go of anything. It is capable of such a task. However, it doesn't cross our minds to allow it. So the Feather of Truth, the name of this book, is all about letting go and allowing healing to exist, allowing love to vibrate in your life more than fear. And finally embracing fear as a companion to change and to healing, not the enemy. Allowing love to be the dominant energy in your life. That is the goal. So now take some time, write and journal. Think about the releasing your emotions process. Allow your heart to show you what areas of your life you should focus on right now. And begin to work on the process of going from fear to love with an open heart and a trusting spirit. Hopefully this video helps you process through the rest of this chapter. Many blessings to you all. Talk to you soon.